I wanted to make a video describing my vision issues. I'm aware that some people who have watched my earlier videos might be a bit confused as to how I can shoot footage use with a blind cane. The answer to that is that I am not totally blind. Honestly, the percentage of blind and visually impaired people that are completely blind, either from birth or from some other instance in their lives, is quite small. I did look up the figures, but I can't remember them at this point. But I believe it's at least 70% of blind and visually impaired people that have at least some vision remaining. Of course, that can take various forms. My vision is fairly okay for what it is. I don't see a lot of detail anymore. My vision loss results from a condition called diabetic retinopathy. I was born diabetic, diagnosed at 3. I'm a type 1. And when I was about 25, so this was back in 2007-ish, I think, but I woke up one morning and all I could see out of my left eye was red. I realized immediately that this was blood, and I called a relative to take me to the ER. He did so. Of course, the ER doctor looked me over, told me that I'd had a hemorrhage in the back of my eyeball due to an excess of blood vessels in the eye, which is what retinopathy is. And it's a fairly common complication of diabetes. Not the worst by far, but it is something that a lot of people experience. I would have been able to reverse the damage had I had vision insurance. But at that point, I did not have vision insurance and I was quite poor. I was referred from the ER to a vision clinic in my hometown, which I called to set up an appointment for a necessary surgery. I went, had the consultation, and everything looked like it was set up and ready to go. I was called several days later and told that as I did not have vision insurance, they would not be able to perform the surgery, and suggested that I seek out some sort of teacher college, or not teacher college, sorry, medical college, that I could look for reduced rates on that surgery. The closest I could find was in Florida, and I lived in Illinois, which, with my finances being what they were, I was completely unable to afford the transportation plus the cost of the surgery that would have been up front, even at a discount. And yeah, just could not make that happen. So the damage to my eye remained and nothing was done about it. And yeah, it kind of sucks and I'm still upset about it, but that's what being poor in America is like. Never let anyone tell you that healthcare in America is open and accessible to all. It is, but only in emergency situations, and all they have to do in that case is stabilize you so you're not in danger of imminent death. Once that's done, they don't care, and they send you away. And yeah, it's quite a thing. But I learned over time to adapt to my limited vision and was able to move to Sweden for about 5 years to study a master's degree at Uppsala University. When I arrived, I was sponsored by Swedish state healthcare as a student, and they pretty much immediately performed the surgery that I had needed the year before. And it was completely free. I paid not 1 cent or kroner to go and have that procedure done. And it didn't reverse the damage because it had advanced too far, but I'm still incredibly grateful that they took the time to do that for me. Um, but yeah, my vision has been getting progressively worse. I have always had quite terrible vision. I was born without any sort of peripheral vision at all. So, while I did have a driver's license for several years, I really should not have. But the eye test that you take at the DMV, they kind of just waved me through. And while I had a license, I never had my own vehicle, so it didn't really matter. I never drove, aside from going with friends or relatives for like little cruise trips or whatever. But I never really drove, which is a good thing. And yeah, so that was a big issue all my life. And with the retinopathy, it's of course made things a bit worse. Um, Sorry, I'm focusing on the map here because I really don't like how I look on camera. I just look like a huge blob and I don't enjoy it. So I'm just focusing on the map because travel. But yeah. Um, anyway, I began to have injections of medication into my right eyeball because my left eye is completely done. I have a tiny pinprick field of vision in that eye, but it's not enough to use for anything. If I try to read with it, it's not possible at all. The right eye has about half of its vision left, so I would say I have maybe 25% vision total anymore. I'm able to make out outlines of things, and I can still reasonably watch TV and read if I enlarge font a lot, and so on. So it's not the worst thing in the world. There are, of course, issues with it though, because I have no depth perception with the loss of the left eye. And that makes it incredibly difficult to maneuver with stairs and any sort of change in level. If there's a shop that I want to go into, I have to be very, very sure that the door does not open to a step or something of that sort. And I do carry a blind cane for that reason. Um, I am normally quite able to make my way around reasonably well. It's harder at night because with the lack of depth perception, I get scared if my way is not well lit, which living in Ireland, it's not in a lot of places that aren't the city center. So it can be difficult to get around at night. I do still try on occasion, but for the most part, I stay in at nighttime just because I need to. um, but yes, my vision is pretty bad, but it is not complete blindness. I do still have some sight, which is how I'm able to shoot footage and look at scenery and be amazed by it and all that good stuff. But I am still considered blind. I was on Social Security disability. Um, it's actually called SSI, Supplemental Security Income, because I didn't have enough working credits before I went blind to make me eligible for actual disability payments. So it's basically just welfare for disabled people. And I was approved on the first try, which is fairly rare because most people have to go through an appeals process. But I was blind enough that they pushed me through and determined that I am permanently disabled and thus I am entitled to benefits the rest of my life. I do have to re-verify my condition every 5 years, which I obviously haven't done since I moved to Ireland because the amount that I was getting per month was about $600, and that had to include, in the state that I was living in, that had to include my rent, my food, my medication, everything. They wouldn't allow me to have any sort of food assistance. I did have Medicaid, but I still had to pay out of pocket a copay for most medication. So It definitely was not enough to live on, and I've always been a fan of education and health systems in countries that are not America, so I left. Um, I wanted to stay in Sweden and wasn't able to do so, but I'm now in Ireland and I like it quite a bit, so I'm hoping to stay long term here, if at all possible. This country can be a bit tough for those with disabilities just because the architecture is quite old and they're not really that great about access for the most part. I mean, they do have it in most buildings and facilities, because as I said, I have problems with stairs, with depth perception and whatnot. I can usually make my way up and down them, because it's basically just muscle memory, but I'm very, very slow my first time going up and down staircases, simply because I'm not familiar with it. So I do try to take elevators and lifts when possible. This is difficult in Ireland because disabled access elevators are generally something that you have to ask people for. And these people can be security guards or information desk workers or people of that sort, which is fine and well and good, but as I don't see that well, I cannot tell where these people are. So, for the most part, unless such person happens to notice me with my cane and struggling to get up the stairs, I do not know whom to ask for this sort of assistance. So I generally just try to make my way slowly around. And it's honestly not that bad. I mean, it's nothing that I can't handle. It's just a bit odd, I guess. But such is life. I mean, you can't really change it. One thing I do enjoy since being found blind is that with my blind cane, all I have to do when I go on airplanes is to go to the service desk at the airport and tell the people there that I am blind and would like assistance, and I get escorted through security privately, and it's a wonderful thing. Actually, I had a layover when I came to Ireland. I was in Frankfurt, and the staff there, as the airport is ginormously huge, they had these little go-kart things, and the security person decided he would just plop me in one of those, and we got to cart around the airport while everybody else was running to their flights. And I kind of felt like I was taking advantage because technically I could see enough to have been able to do it, but it's often referred to as using the blind cane, just because, I mean, if you need a perk to going blind, I guess that would be a good one. But yeah, I normally get, even in economy class, I get escorted to my seat on the plane. Sometimes this can be after everyone else, which kind of sucks, because waiting while the stewardesses are greeting everyone, I don't think they're called stewardesses anymore. I don't know, flight attendants. But that is kind of annoying. But yeah, I mean, that's what you get. So it is what it is. And I mean, I really appreciate that they take the time to do that, which I know they have to, but still, it's a thing. And yeah, that would be the explanation of my vision stuffs. I do try to get around and see as much as I can. It is a progressive condition, so my eyes will continue to get worse. Hopefully, with adequate treatment and taking care of myself, obviously, I can ward it off for quite some time. That would be good. I would like to keep what vision I have. But yeah, as my life goes on, as it's a progressive thing, I'm probably going to lose more and more as time passes, which is fine. I've made my peace with it. I was very sad for quite some time, but I've learned to get around it. And honestly, with technology being what it is now, I'm doing a master's program in politics at the moment, and I am able to use screen reading software and text to speech, and those have worked fine. and if I enlarge the font and the text on my screen, I can generally get by without a problem. So that's very good. But yeah, just wanted to give a bit of an explanation as to what my vision is because I know people may be confused as to how I can make videos when I'm blind, but that is how. So, huzzah!